Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, April 20th, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Senate election in the state of Kentucky. So I'm making this video probably as one of my final few videos that I'm going to be making pertaining to the 2020 Senate race until I transfer back over into the presidential election. And focus on a couple of other videos, and then I'm going to go ahead and dial back into the Senate videos. But for right now, it looks like I'm just going to be covering Republican Senate seats and then move on to the Democratic ones that are contested. I won't be covering every single one, so if you live in a safe state, I'm sorry, I will not be covering your Senate race, but all of the contested ones, and there's more than 10, so it should be pretty interesting as we go through it. You can find all of these on my channel. If you go to my channel, you can go ahead and look at the playlist tab, and you will see that I have all of the 2020 Senate election analysis videos for each individual state in that folder, and then there's another folder that says 2020 Senate elections after 2020 started, where it's just every single Senate video that I've made since 2020 started, and to be honest, there's only like 3 or 4, but that's exactly why I'm making more of these videos. So the 2020 Senate election in Kentucky, this is Senator Mitch McConnell's seat. If you don't know, he's the Senate Majority Leader, and he's been serving in this seat since 1984, a total of 36 years, and it looks like he's going to be on the pathway to win another 6-year term. So Mitch McConnell's been in the Senate for almost half of his life, and he has yet to face a race in recent time that is competitive. In 2014, actually, if we go ahead and take a look at the last 2014 Senate election, he ran against candidate Allison Lundergan Grimes. And as of right now, actually, she is a statewide politician. She is the Secretary of State, and she couldn't run in 2019. And some people speculated her running again for United States Senate. She decided not to, mainly, I guess, because she already lost against Mitch McConnell, but she was pretty popular Democrat. I mean, a lot of people looked at her as a possible candidate for Senate this time around because they thought that she would have won in 2014. But 2014 was a Republican wave year in the United States Senate. And Allison Lundergan Grimes made a couple of mistakes on the campaign trail that typically does not bode well with Republican voters. Now, Kentucky isn't by any means a Democratic state or swing state. It's completely a Republican state in terms of presidential party voting, Senate voting, but not so much in the governorship, which is interesting. The Democrats picked up a governor seat back in 2019 in the state of Kentucky. But into the 2016 presidential election, Donald Trump got 63% of the vote, and Hillary Clinton got 33%. It was a blowout. It's Kentucky, it's known as a Republican state, and it is almost surely a Republican state. In fact, 2008, Kentucky was the first state to go to Senator John McCain, and there were a number of other states that were up at that poll closing time, but Kentucky was the only one that they were comfortable enough calling. But I think that Kentucky is really interesting. It's used to be a Democratic state. Bill Clinton won the state of Kentucky both times in 1992 and 1996, and it was pretty contested in 2000, and not so much after that. Hillary Clinton, though, in the year 2008, led John McCain in Kentucky polling data, which I think is insane. She led him by around 8% in 2008. Kentucky did have a possibility of flipping back to the Democrats if Hillary Clinton was the nominee, which I just think is a little fun fact considering she didn't even come close to winning it in 2016. But about Mitch McConnell, well, right now he is currently the second most disapproved of senator nationwide with a 50% disapproval rating and a 37% approval rating. So this poll was taken in Kentucky. Why is he so unpopular? Well, mainly because he's been in Congress for such a long period of time. Mitch McConnell, this guy has been in on that Kentucky ballot every 6 years, and a lot of people know him, but not a lot of Kentucky voters truly believe that he represents them in terms of the things that he pushes through legislation and his national view. A lot of these voters, though they do disapprove of him, vote for him time and time again. I kid you not, he has not had a real contested election in a long time. 2008 was the only one, and he won by 6%, enough to put it into a likely column. If you just go back, the only close election was his first election, which he won by less than a percentage point. Since then, since 1984, he has won every single election, and it looks like genuinely he's going to win this one again. Though Kentucky may not necessarily approve of him, he is the 99th top senator in terms of approval rating, and the Democrats are outraising him. He's an incumbent, he's the Senate Majority Leader, and he's a Republican. This isn't a year where the Democrats are supposed to win the United States Senate, and even if it does come, I cannot see a possibility for them to win here. Let's talk about the Democratic candidates, though. The only real candidate that has a realistic shot at the nomination is former Marine fighter pilot and Democratic nominee for Kentucky's 6th District in 2018, Amy McGrath. If you remember, she ran in 2018 with that ad that went completely viral across the internet. She talked about how she wrote a letter to actually Senator Mitch McConnell, and I believe that's what was in the video. And she also had discussed how she pretty much believed in the Kentucky values. She was running for a House seat, but it seems like she was running for a lot more. Her ads were not so much centered on the 6th District, but way more centered on Kentucky as a whole, which I can honestly see why she would run for United States Senate. She did narrowly lose in 2018. That's why it doesn't call her incumbent representative. But when you take a look at the race itself, it was insanely close. For Kentucky's 6th District, it wasn't close in terms of what I would characterize as close. I'm thinking less than 1%. Anything above 5% isn't really close. We're talking about Senate and House elections here. It's a 6-year term. Nobody's going to remember that. But for the House Representatives races, it's 2 years. So again, no one's really going to remember that. They happen so often. But Amy McGrath, she's 47.8%, so she had a pretty good showing against Andy Barr. Unfortunately for her, she did not beat him, but that led her into running for United States Senate. So she does have some pretty notable endorsements, a number of former Democratic candidates for president: Michael Bennet, Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, all senators, and a couple of other senators that did not run for president: Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, and Chris Murphy. A couple U.S. representatives, U.S. Governor Steve Bullock, interesting, again, former Democratic candidates, and a number of other people. Pete Buttigieg, just looking at the list, she does have a pretty substantial support, and it does look like she's going to end up winning this nomination for the United States Senate. But realistically, if we take a look at the last time there was a Senate race in Kentucky, it was 2016. This is the time where it coincided with a presidential election year, and Rand Paul won 57.3% of the vote. Now, if you look at the 2016 election, sure, Donald Trump won more votes, but also Jim Gray was pretty well known. He was a mayor, and also now he's, I guess, Kentucky Secretary of Transportation. But when you take a look at this election, we're talking about a local who still couldn't break that barrier, couldn't even come above 45%. It wasn't a close race. It was coinciding with the presidential election, so turnout should be roughly similar to what we might see in 2020. I don't think Kentucky's swinging blue anytime soon. And though Mitch McConnell is disapproved of, he has been disapproved of. His approval rating was 34% in 2014. He did win in 2014 by around 16%. His approval rating, though narrowly improved, fluctuates when you go quarter to quarter by 2 to 3% in favor or not in favor of Mitch McConnell, but generally it stays around the mid-30s. Again, that same voting bloc that had a 34% approval rating for him gave him 56% of the vote in 2014. So, realistically, yes, they do disapprove of him. He is one of the most hated senators, not just in Kentucky. If you look at his approval rating, high 20s, 29% nationwide amongst American voters. Mitch McConnell isn't going to lose this race. And if he does lose this race, I mean, that'll be substantial for the Democrats. But realistically, you're not unseating the incumbent majority leader from the United States Senate. That rarely ever happens. And when you look, well, it's not going to look too feasible, especially in a state like Kentucky. It's not critical for the Democrats to win back their majority. I think it's more so of a pipe dream, not as competitive as a number of other states that we should be taking a look at in terms of the Democrats picking up. Not as competitive as Arizona, not as competitive as Colorado, not as competitive as Michigan even, not as competitive as Maine, not as competitive as Georgia, Texas, a number of other states. Kentucky, realistically, we're looking at possibly a 5 to 6 point margin if everything works for the Democrats. But even then, we're talking about maybe 9 to 10 in the Senate election. I do think it is going to narrow just because there will be increased turnout amongst the Democrats and minority voters, but it's still Kentucky. There isn't much to worry about for Donald Trump in Kentucky. Realistically, he's not going to lose it. If you look, there's only one close poll, and even then it's from July of 2019, and then the rest pretty much add up to what we would expect from the state of Kentucky. But I think that it's going to be a pretty substantial victory for Senator Mitch McConnell. Again, not crucial to the Democrats. Taking a look at the fundraising, I honestly think this is money wasted. Amy McGrath, sure, she has an inspirational story, but that money definitely could be used on other races that are super close. Arizona, Maine even, Michigan to solidify a Democratic victory there. Iowa, I mean, that's more competitive than the state of Kentucky. And I know a lot of you guys did discuss the fact that it was possible that Rocky Adkins was going to run for United States Senate here and would have supported him over Amy McGrath, but that did not end up happening. Amy McGrath is most likely going to be the Democratic nominee here, and I'm not sure when their Democratic primary is going to be held. But yeah, if you just take a look at these predictions, likely, safe, likely, realistically not going to be close. But it is, I guess, where the Democrats would focus their attention if they had every other seat. But in reality, they shouldn't be paying attention to the Kentucky race whatsoever. But that pretty much wraps up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.